Last week I released my State of Void video, which was also my first video in my mini-series about the current meta in Destiny 2. This week we're moving on to the next subclass in the list. Released alongside Lightfall a little over a year ago, Strand is the newest subclass available in Destiny, and is our second Darkness subclass after Stasis. I think most people who have been playing during the year of Lightfall have a feeling that Strand is strong across the board, and without spoiling too much of the video, this is pretty accurate. But what would this video analysis be if I stopped there? We'll be taking a deeper look into how Strand stacks up in PvE and PvE on every class in the game: Hunters, Warlocks, and Titans. Whether you're a brand new player looking for recommendations for what to play going into the final shape, or you're a veteran player who wants to look at a deeper level at the meta of the game, this video should help you out. Hey everyone, I'm Rozeki, and welcome to my analysis of the state of the Strand subclass in Destiny 2. As always, thank you so much for checking out the video. Did you know that 92% of the people watching my videos have yet to subscribe? You might not even realize that you aren't subscribed yourself. To make sure you're the first to see my new videos, don't forget to subscribe and maybe even leave a like on the video if you enjoy it. I promise you won't want to miss my upcoming subclass analysis videos. Okay, with all the cringe YouTuber plugging out of the way, we can start talking all about Strand. Early in Lightfall, closest to its original release, Strand felt like it was missing a couple key things that it needed to really shine. Over the course of the year, Bungie has released new aspects for each class that propelled Strand into the powerhouse that it is now. Even without these aspects, Strand has a large number of features and keywords that play a big role in the subclass. Not only does Strand have great movement tools such as Grapple Grenade and Frenzied Blades on Titans specifically, but it also has some of the best crowd control effects we've ever seen. Suspend in particular will hang enemies in the air using the strings of the universe, rendering them completely useless, even stunning champions. Sever will reduce the damage enemies can do to you, and at the same time you could have Woven Mail, increasing your damage resistance to all incoming attacks. Tangles, Threadlings, and Unravel also provide tons of utility to the subclass, and builds can be made around any number of these individual components. Some classes specialize in particular parts of the kit, and some seem to be able to make multiple different builds viable. On the other hand, Strand is a bit of a jack of all trades and possibly a master of none. With so much available in the kit, it's hard to not only balance each potential build, but also to provide enough support to make each build feel cohesive. Strand has a set of fragments that honestly live up to the name. They feel fragmented. Most of the support for the builds will come from your chosen aspects, and the fragments will help improve the consistency of certain builds, but not so much beyond that. In addition, Strand requires players to own and complete the Lightfall campaign, so not everyone will have easy access to it. Does this break the subclass? Let's find out. Let's jump right into our first class, Hunter, to get a picture for how all of this actually comes together. At the surface, Strand feels like a subclass built for the Hunter fantasy. Threadrunners specialize in the movement mechanics of Strand and excel at being the Spider-Man subclass. Threadrunners also have the ability to build in a large number of options in PvE, so everyone's Strand Hunter will be a little different from each other. Although Threadrunners are very versatile, I don't think they're the strongest in PvE out of the three classes in the game. The Grapple Grenade was built for Hunters, and it's clear that this is what the devs wanted. Threadrunners have an aspect Widow's Silk, which gives you a second grenade charge, and also creates a grapple point when using your grapple ability. In addition, the Strand exotic Surturachne's Facade will give you Woven Mail when grappling as well. This was the go-to combination early in Strand's life, but a little over a year later, and we've had some better builds come out. One thing I find interesting about Strand overall is how the exotic armor made specifically for it is not nearly as impactful as general use exotics, and that goes for every class we're going to talk about today. Hunters will probably find that the affectionately named Beyblade build is the better choice over Grapple. This build focuses on the newer Threadrunner aspect, Whirling Maelstrom. For each Tangle destroyed, it will spawn a Beyblade-like object that flies around the area, damaging and unraveling any enemy it touches. Using an exotic like Foe Tracer will give you much more opportunities to create Whirling Maelstroms than using something like Surturachne's. The amount of AoE damage provided by this build makes it so much better suited for ad clear and especially higher level content where the Grapple Grenade may be more dangerous to use. Another build that has recently surfaced, due in part to a build battle from Aztecross, is the Minion Master build, using Mothkeeper's Wraps. This build uses Threadlings, Moth Grenades, and Whirling Maelstroms to jolt, unravel, and defeat a large number of enemies, while also giving the user Void Overshields. In a weird way, this might be the first look at what a prismatic build might look like. Although, that's getting a little ahead of the video. There's some other builds that work well, like using 6 Coyote with Ensnaring Slam for suspend-based builds. Overall, Threadrunners are extremely versatile, and can make use of most of the tools available in the Strand kit. I don't have too much to say about the super in terms of PvE, but it's great for ad clear, it's fun to play, but falls short in boss DPS due to being a roaming super. But what about PvP? Well, based on the groan from all the veteran players that are watching this video, you probably already know where I'm going. Strand Hunter might be the best PvP subclass in the game, full stop. There's a couple things that make this the case. To start, I think Strand Hunter has taken over the PvP landscape, not just because of its overall power, but also because it has a fairly low skill floor, and simultaneously a very high skill ceiling. On the floor, PvP thread runners have access to threadling grenades, ensnaring slam, and threaded specters. Threadlings are infuriating to play against, even after being nerfed, since they can travel long distances, deal a fair amount of damage, and don't have to be aimed. Pretty much the threadling AI does most of the work after you spawn them. Ensnaring Slam instantly suspends all nearby enemies, and being suspended is almost a death sentence, since aiming is nearly impossible for the affected player, and their movement is heavily slowed. Threaded Specters provide radar manipulation, and also can delete unsuspecting players that walk past them. Shout out to the Threaded Spectre Bombardiers build that took over the Crucible for a short period a few months ago. At the ceiling, players like Warlock fly through the air with grapple, suspend anyone in sight, and then fly off in another direction to find their next victim. Even Threaded Specters have bonus functionality, with the Threaded Spike melee being able to target Specters first to wrap around corners, defeating enemies that thought they were out of your line of sight. Threaded Spike doesn't care. It will find you, and it will damage you and all of your nearby friends too. The only problem with Thread Runner is the super, Silk Strike, being kind of clunky in PvP. I find myself not using it often because it's hard to use properly, and honestly regularly leads players to being overconfident and then face planting into an enemy shotgun. But if Silk Strike was any stronger, Thread Runner would be way more of a threat than it already is, so I think it's fine. Hunters, if you're not using Strand in PvP, I think you're missing out. Warlocks, you're up next. Although not nearly as versatile as Threadrunner, Broodweaver has clear advantages and build paths that make it a great subclass option. There are two major build categories for Broodweavers, Threadlings and Suspend. Threadlings are what was originally intended to be the best to use on Warlock. Aspects such as Weaver's Call and Weavewalk generate tons of Threadlings. Warlock also has a special intrinsic ability that does not require an aspect or fragment to enable, Threadling Perching. Normally, the Threadlings will travel and either find a target to attack or despawn. Warlock created Threadlings instead will return to the player upon not finding a target. Perched Threadlings will be redeployed when a target is damaged by the player. You can have up to 6 perched Threadlings, and that is a lot of potential damage. The Strand Exotic Armor Swarmers will give Threadlings the ability to unravel targets they damage, and also players will be able to spawn a Threadling whenever they destroy a Tangle. There is a lot of space to customize the Threadling/Summoner build, since you could combine a number of different aspects to change how you want to play the Summoner, and there are a number of fragments that directly benefit Threadling builds. Arguably, the more potent Warlock build path is actually Suspend. Mindspun, Invocation, and the Wanderer both create opportunities for large-scale AoE suspends and even chain suspends. Mixing this with an exotic like Necrotic Grips will further spread the suspending burst around the battlefield. As mentioned earlier, suspended enemies literally can't do anything, and unstoppable champions are instantly stunned when affected by Suspend. Outside of specific builds, Weavewalk is also a great way to protect yourself in a pinch. While in the Weave, you'll be highly resistant to incoming damage, so it can help you stay alive that much longer. Broodweaver Super, Needlestorm is by far the best burst DPS super Warlocks have access to. In fact, Broodweaver is one of the highest burst DPS subclasses in the entire game, not just in Warlocks, even outperforming Hunters in a lot of cases. Using Needlestorm in combination with Thread of Ascent for weapon reloading, and using our Arcane Needle melee to unravel bosses will make them melt. If you don't care so much about healing and want to lean into huge AoE crowd control and burst DPS instead, Strand might just be a go-to for you. That being said, if you are looking for more sustain, you're not really going to find it here. Woven Mail is a bit harder to come by when compared to Hunters and Titans, and most of your healing is relegated to your Healing Rift or Karnstein Armlets if you want to go down that route. For one of the best offensive Warlock subclasses in PvE, Strand is great, but if you prefer a more defensive or supportive playstyle, it's best to look elsewhere. Broodweaver in PvP is fine. It'll do the job. You still have access to the same Threadling grenades as Hunters, and you could definitely catch players off guard by using Weavewalk. It is definitely the weakest Strand subclass in PvP though. Outside of having all your Threadling abilities off cooldown, there's really not much you can do. Weave Walk will quickly consume your melee charge, making it a niche choice, and even Needle Storm is fairly weak in PvP. It can pick up kills, but it can be hard to hit your preferred target due to the somewhat random tracking of the Needle Storm projectiles. Nova Bomb on Void even outperforms it here, since it can almost guarantee kills and also pops Bubble and Wells with ease. While you won't be struggling in PvP if you play it correctly, you are by far better off picking a different subclass that lends itself more to area denial, better super options, or more debuffs. Broodweaver in PvE relies heavily on Threadlings, Tangles, and chaining debuff effects, which tends to be difficult to achieve in PvP. Tangles are not as easy to generate, and there's not enough enemies to be able to chain debuffs. And let's be honest, Guardians are a little bit more resilient than generic red bars. Titans, Titans, Titans. Oh boy, you guys cooked hard with Berserker. If you thought Hunters and Warlocks had some solid PvE capabilities, you're not ready for the unkillable menace that is Strand Titan. Last video, I kinda dunked on Void Titan a little bit for missing some key features that it needed to excel. The story is much different with Strand. Titans are all about staying alive, getting in your face, and punching you to death. No subclass does it better than Berserker. The standard Berserker combination is to use Banner of War with Into the Fray and a 1-2 punch shotgun. Banner of War is the most powerful ability in the Berserker kit, giving a stack for each enemy defeated with a melee kill or finisher. Each stack grants escalating healing pulses for yourself and nearby allies. So, as long as you keep punching things, you literally can't die. But this isn't the only thing that keeps you alive. Into the Fray is the other piece of this puzzle, giving you Woven Mail when destroying a Tangle. Woven Mail gives you a 40% damage resistance for free, and is easy to refresh by either destroying another Tangle, or using the Thread of Warding to refresh Woven Mail upon collecting an Orb of Power. Punch, raise a banner, heal, punch, Frenzied Blade, destroy Tangle, heal, punch, it goes on and on. Not only is this one of the easiest combos to pull off across all of Destiny, it is also extremely strong. When combined with Syntheseps or Worm God Caress, as well as the Navigator Exotic Trace Rifle to create grapple points, and maybe even the Tractor Cannon for a massive debuff, Banner of War Titan can absolutely shred bosses solo in dungeons, and can clear out any difficult elites or champions with ease. Although Banner of War is the strongest single build in Destiny, there are some other options that can be highly effective. Just like Hunters and Warlocks, Berserker Titans can build heavily into AoE Suspend if they choose. Drenger's Lash and Abeyant Leap is the classic combination for when Strand was first released, and honestly is still effective, even if overshadowed by Banner. By casting your Barricade, every single enemy in a large cone in front of you will be suspended and subsequently easily defeated. This particular build will excel in activities where there are large groups of enemies that are hard to individually pick off with the Banner build. Onslaught is one that comes to mind, but Grandmaster Nightfalls are also a place where large AoE suspend effects will be beneficial. Although not as prevalent as the previously mentioned versions of Berserker, you could also use a build surrounding Fletched Storm if that's more your style. For general content, this is fine to use, but will probably fall short in high-level activities where staying alive and crowd-controlling enemies is much more important. The Berserker super Blade Fury is surprisingly good. Although it's a roaming super, it has pretty great boss DPS, sometimes topping the charts in some cases. It also provides AoE Suspend for dealing with difficult groups of enemies, as well as high melee damage output for taking out those enemies very quickly. Berserker in PvP is in a similar position to Warlocks. It's fine, but has a lot to be desired. Being a Titan subclass, you of course get access to barricades, and with the other Strand subclasses, you too have access to grapple and Threadling grenades. In my opinion, Strand Titans will need to rely on tools like Drenger's Lash for suspend, and your grenade to get any noticeable value. Most of the Berserker kit revolves around PvE potency and high levels of AoE suspend, and without the volume of enemies to deal with in PvP, alongside longer ability cooldowns, it's tough to recommend you play Berserker here. Blade Fury is solid due to easy suspends and high damage, but with the rest of the PvP options being mid at best, it doesn't provide enough to bring it up a tier. The biggest issue for Strand Titan in PvP is really just a lack of access to Woven Mail consistently, and a lack of tools that could be used often enough in a one-on-one situation. Again, Berserker is all about dealing with groups and groups of enemies, and that just doesn't exist in PvP. Just like in my other State of videos, here's my recommendations for each class, followed by my overall rating for the state of Strand currently in Destiny. If you are a Hunter player, Strand is a great, versatile option for PvE, and a force to be reckoned with in PvP. My personal choice for PvE is the Foe Tracer Beyblade build, since you could output tons of AoE damage and have a high uptime on abilities. Since there's so many ways to build a Thread Runner, You could form this subclass to match your individual playstyle or to match the type of content you're currently playing. A suspend build will naturally work wonders in Grandmaster Nightfalls, but you could also have fun swinging around like Spider-Man in regular difficulty activities and still find success. If you're a PvP player, you absolutely need to give Strand Hunter a try. It's easy to learn, and mastering it will make you unstoppable. Warlocks, if you value a more offensive playstyle, like large-scale AoE, or just need a great option for burst DPS, look no further than Broodweaver. Threadlings are cool, can work, and are sometimes effective, but I would say in most content, the amount of AoE suspend offered by Mindspun Invocation and Wanderer are unmatched. And after learning your DPS rotation, bosses will be no match for you and your super. Just stay away from the Crucible. Sure, you can make it work, especially if you choose to build into Threadlings, but you'll find it hard to take advantage of the other parts of the kit that rely on larger quantities of enemies, and you'll probably find more success using other subclasses instead. Titans are actively hindering themselves by not using Berserker. Banner of War is the single strongest build currently in the game, and although other Titan subclasses are good in PvE, I think Berserker's better. Great ad clear, excellent sustain, and a solid super make it hard to recommend anything else. Mastering your Banner of War build could lead you to killing any dungeon boss solo in a few seconds, and you'll be beating the hardest content in the game in no time. Plus, Bungie has said Berserker is in a spot they're happy with, so I don't think they'll be nerfing it anytime soon. But in PvP, it might get you some cheesy kills with Drenger's Lash, but you'll be lacking a lot of things like overshields that the other Titan subclasses provide to make them much better in PvP. You can make it work if you want, but it's definitely not the best. If I were to give an overall rating to the Strand subclass as of the Season of the Wish, I would give it an A+. For any class, Hunter, Warlock, or Titan, you'll be able to find success using Strand in pretty much any content in the game. Strong AoE crowd control effects like Suspend and a number of different build options help propel Strand to the top of the charts. The only catch is you have to play through the Lightfall campaign to unlock it. But Nimbus isn't that bad, is he? If you made it this far, thank you so much for sticking around. Just like last time, I left a dim link for a recommended build for each class in the video description to get you up and running with Strand as soon as you finish watching. And if you did in fact make it this far, you probably found the video at least a little bit interesting, so make sure to subscribe and hit the like button to be notified for upcoming State of videos. We've still got Arc and Solar to talk about, along with some great videos right after that, so definitely check those out when they go live. But I think that's all I've got for now. As always, I've been Rizeki, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.